In the category of I watched it so you don't have to, I watched The Towering Inferno from 1974. But my general impression of beforehand was that this is a really, really bad movie. It has a reputation. So when I started the first thing I see on the box, of course, it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. And it's a disaster movie, which is, of course, the genre of the disaster movie is its own thing, and it has its own tropes that even the bestest version cannot escape. And with a disaster movie, it means people are going to die. You have to know that before you enter. So I was aware of that. I was going to get invested in the characters, hopefully, and that some of them were going to die. Great. I did know this movie was made in 1974 when the Hollywood was in dire straits. They had the television was coming up very strong, and they were losing viewers to television in a big way. And in the way that in the 50s people would go to the cinema every week and spend their 50 cents on it every week, people were going maybe a couple of times a year now. And so they had to make it a big, huge blockbuster. A blockbuster, the word actually did exist beforehand, but the blockbusters, the way we have them now, is sort of more this period. Is when getting people out of their house, off their couch, into the seats with enticements, with visuals and explosions and not in this movie, I think, but rumble seats and 3D. And they tried everything in the 70s. All the stuff that they have now with the 3D, they tried in the 70s. Most of it failed. But they were desperate for bums on seats. And so this movie reflects that quite a bit. It has half of Hollywood in it because they were all available in a way they wouldn't have been 10 years earlier. The cast list. Look, oh my God, and we'll go through some of them in a second. But oh my God, it is ginormous, but also the way this was put together is same ginormousness. The movie is based on 2 books, which is already very interesting. 2 books, 1 book, no book, 1 book. That's usual. 2 books, unusual. And more, 2 major production companies, Fox and Warner Bros., co-produced this. And the story goes like this. The major guy in disaster movies was Irving Allen, who produced the Poseidon Adventure, I think the year or 2 earlier. And he was at Fox and heard that at Warner Bros. They actually bought for quite a bit of money the rights to one of those 2 books for $350,000. There was a big bidding war. Everybody knew about it. But under Fox, they also got a book for which they also paid a lot of money that had roughly the same idea, the same plot points. And so Alan went, you know what, it would be silly to do 2 separate movies. Also because that had happened earlier, like 10, 15 years earlier, there were just 2 movies coming out of the same subject at the same time. And they are completely in competition with each other. And he wanted to avoid that. He said, why? So they teamed up with Warner Bros. Teamed up with Fox. They combined the books. They got in a very good script writer to write a usable script for the story. And they poured in a lot of money for the time. I think the budget was like 14 million in 1974 money. I think it's like times 10 and a little bit. So call it $140 million, which it looks that. I mean, yes. 1 million went to Paul Newman, 1 million went to Steve McQueen because they were the hot tickets at the time. The other hot ticket, which was sort of a very cool ticket, but he was hot a good 30 years earlier was Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire is in this. He's 75 years old in this. And I love him. He is great. He actually got a Oscar nomination out of it. His only nomination he got out of out of Hollywood was for this role. He didn't get it for a supporting cast. He didn't get the statuette, but he got nominated anyway. He did get some other. He got the BAFTA for best supporting for this. So yay! And the rest of the awards they got for this movie were all technical stuff. I believe script and special effects and stuff like that. 14 million in 1974 dollars is right now. So it's about 88 million in current money. Of course, the way they spend money now on movies is different from when they would do then. They also got a lot of cooperation from the local fire department, which is San Francisco. It is set in San Francisco. I think they actually say it once, but they have a beautiful flyover when Paul Newman arrives at the tower. They have a beautiful flyover over the city. It's a little long. This is a 1974 movie, and they are going to fill up 2 hours and 44 minutes. And I was going with that very, very long flyover before. It's 5 minutes before you actually get to somebody to say anything at all. I was going, oh my God, it's going to be one of those movies. It's not. It's not. The story is very simple. You have this fangled new building. And they're going to have a party at the top to commemorate the opening. And then something is going to go wrong because it's a disaster movie. And the whole thing is actually absolutely obvious because, when you have a building that is so fancy and so wonderful, as a Dutch person, we unfortunately know a lot about this. It's building fraud. And building fraud happens when you have a very expensive building and people are trying to cut costs one way or another, and they're skirting around the edges of what is permissible. And when you get to actual fraud, you go under what is by law permissible for whatever construction. And here I thought it was a bit wishy-washy because the Paul Newman character is actually the architect, and he had in his plans put up, we want the fancy wire for the electrical wiring, and we want this fancy and that fancy, whereas the industry standards are lower. So he wanted more than the industry standard, and then the person who is going to cut the costs puts it down back to industry standard, and that was not good enough. Now we get an electrical fire and we have a disaster movie. I think the movie is making a cop-out because I think in reality it would have been straight up building fraud, and they would have simply, gone under specs. Or the specs are wrong, that's a different thing altogether. If the specs, the officially mandated the specs are wrong for this, that's a different problem altogether. The film does not address this. It's not about that. This film is just about people in the building and something goes horribly wrong, and watch them react and watch them do and watch them be people. And it's a slow burn movie. And so the slow start is indicative of the movie because people are living their life in that building. The evening is happening. The whole thing is set in just that afternoon and that evening of the grand opening, and then the party, and then the problems. And it's a slow burn with the introduction of many characters. And I would say in most any movie, too many characters. But they do manage to carry it off with dead people. It is a disaster movie. I really like the Fred Astaire character. He has a lady in the character played by Jennifer Jones, who we know from Portrait of Jenny. She's now a adult lady. She was a very young lady at that time. And she's absolutely charming, and they're so charming together. And he's a bit of a con artist and a bit of a no good Nick, but he's such a sweet, charming no good Nick. And I think the charm of those two, and there's a couple of other people who are just normal people. There's the kids. There's two kids running around, and they are very much kids. And it offsets the seriousness of the situation. The architect he's in the middle of it, who is in over his head and trying to cope, doing it very well, but he's going a couple of times, and somebody kicks him into gear. And the very competent fire marshal chief Halloran, played by Steve McQueen, who is done this a lot of times, maybe too many times, going, oh my god, I have to do this again. And the byplay, it takes a very long time before they actually get to meet, because they keep running around the building, up and down, and then stuff happens and the levels go separately off in fire. It's a mess. And one of my conclusions was, a general conclusion is that in a building like this, you cannot have a gas main. Because the big problem they have is that once this fire gets going and you get from one level to another, the heat builds up and the gas main blows and it starts burning on a different level. Oh my god. So I think this building has like 150 floors. That's another problem, and this is a problem that a lot of people know about now, but for when they did this movie, it was new, is that the fire department really can't do anything above a certain 5 or 6 stories. It starts to become problematic. So 150 stories up. Yeah, the fire marshal does go like that at some point. What do you expect us to do about this? So I think the building codes of a building like this should be a lot better than these ones obviously were. And the architect knew that it needs better building codes, and that's why he put them in. But if they get reduced by somebody else, but that's why you need laws. I mean, like I said, the film is not about that, but that's why you need laws about this sort of thing, because the people who have the money are more interested in keeping it than spending it, and so you have to make them spend it where it's needed, because they are at the end. The conclusion is that there is at least 200 people dead, and the fire marshal is actually very happy that it's not more. He says, he walks away saying, and at one point we're going to have a thing like this and it's going to be 10,000 people dead. And he'd like to avoid that, you know? I thought the ending was very interesting. I'm not going to spoiler it, but I also think it's not realistic. I think you need a lot more of that than you actually saw. I don't think that would work. It's nice, but I don't think it would work. And in light of 9/11, we know what the conclusion of a fire like this would probably be for a building. It would fall down. It would come down. And I think the film kind of already knows that, because one of the first things that happens is that Steve McQueen character comes in and tells the police to put a cordon of at least 4 blocks around the building. They don't actually do it. We get a lot of people taken care of at the foot of the building, and I think that's poetic license of the film. But he does say it in the beginning, a cordon of 4 blocks away, because I think officially he is worried that the building is going to come down. And that would be a really big mess. It doesn't happen. But another poetic license, I think, of the film is that people are too close to flames. Too many people walking through a space that is inflamed and walking through. The only time they do it fairly, I think, is the scene with Robert Wagner. Which ends up absolutely disastrously. But I think that's realistic. The We get to see the Robert Wagner and his lady, I think that's probably Susan Flannery, very briefly. We get to see them have a romance, but we don't even know in what context. and and they are on one of the upper levels and nobody knows they're there. So when the flames come and the phone is cut off, game over. I think that's fair. This is a disaster movie. You have to show the disaster. And like any disaster, like Titanic. Titanic was such a disaster not because it hit an iceberg, also because it hit an iceberg, but secondly, that it didn't have enough escape crafts, not enough boats to get the people off. And this building has the same thing. It is not secure enough, and it is not enough ways to get out if there's a problem. There's too few elevators. There's the big Jeffries tube. If anybody who knows Star Trek knows what a Jeffries tube is, there's a big Jeffries tube smack in the middle of the building, and it goes straight down, and it has no safeties, and the architect has to actually climb down it, and he goes, I want to kill somebody, because this is not how I planned it. I did it way better than this. And he has to climb down the damn thing. There's a lot of climbing ups and climbing downs. And I think they're trying to do this realistically. I think the script was wonderful in that it did a moment of tension and then a moment of something else. And made us care enough about these many, many characters to be upset when stuff went wrong. And even the moment when one of the characters is very unceremoniously dies, just gone, and blink and you missed it. But then later, when one of the other characters starts looking for her and somebody says, oh, and I was going, oh my God, yeah. And he was, this person being informed was somewhere else at the time. And so, for a reputedly really, really bad movie, this is bloody good. I think it actually redeemed its reputation on certain IMDb. It has 7 on IMDb, so I think the reputation is now much better. And I think the reputation for many years that it had is not the reputation of this particular movie, but of the franchise, of the genre. Because after this, that Poseidon Adventure, I have to re-see that again because it's been a long time, but I think that was also pretty good. But after this, there were so many movies that did the same tropes and did them badly. And I think the one way you can do this badly is by having too many people and too many things happening to these people and too many fatalities right at the end when they should have just been saved, you know? And I was worried about that going to happen here, and it didn't.
I think the star-studded cast of it is also a way to make sure that we are hooked into these characters. It's just another way to get us to care about the characters in the short time that we have to get to know them.
Yeah, and the acting skills that comes with that, especially like the character of Fred Astaire and also Richard Chamberain. Chamberain plays one of the younger people there, and there's a storyline. And it was not an easy role to play, I'm sure. And he was in 1974. He was primarily known from television, Dr. Kildare and stuff like that. So he was kind of he's not there as a film star. He's there as a as a supporting cast. But he has a very difficult role to play, and I think he does it really well. And Fred Astaire, he's Fred Astaire. He does with like looking in the mirror and just going, oh, and he looks in the mirror and looks at his belly and going, oh yeah, I'm old. And it's so fast and so simple. Another TV person who is there is Robert Vaughn as the senator. somebody has to do the grand opening, so the senator does that. And there's also an older senator. There's a couple of high-based people there. And I think that, yes, Paul Newman and Steve McQueen are the main leads, but they're not taking up all the space in this movie. Everybody has space. They have lovely sets. I mean, some of that money went to the set. I think they filmed in a nice building. There's this elevator thing, so this glass elevator thing that goes up the side of the building. And I think they probably filmed that somewhere else and then built it and then took it apart in flames in a studio. And the upstairs where the party is beautiful. But I'm glad to see it was a set, because when they're rapping on the doors of the elevator, it's moving a little way like plywood does, and not the way like a metal elevator door would. Fine, that's fine. I have absolutely no complaints about that at all. I like the way the cinematograph. He actually cinematography got an award as well. I like the way he looked at the building, because sometimes you have like they do like a frontal look at a big building and it looks like a little tiny building. No, but he made him look every time straight up. That's the only view you got of that building. I think it's probably like a miniature, and they did some trick with a lens and stuff. But the way you look up, and then you also have the people look up at the same building at the opening. It's very effective. And so the building not coming down, I mean, now you would probably CGI the building coming down in pieces. I don't think it needed it. They had the miniature is quite big, so I think it was big enough to have like lights in different sections. So when the thing is opened, it lights up in sections. And then when all the electricity keeps being on, that's when you get the short. So the cause and effect of this story is actually really good, because of the opening, they are overloading the electricity grid inside the building, which was not up to the job, and you get a short. And it never stops, because they don't stop with the party. The people upstairs go, oh, there is a fire on 50 floors down. Why would we care about that? And they should have. And the fire marshal is so angry, and he said, there's a fire, go down. Oh no, it's 50 floors down. Yeah, I don't care. I want you down. And he has to almost get out a gun and get them into gear. Verbally he does. So both these books on which this is based are actually from the year before. They are brand spanking new. And I think that is not a coincidence. I think that is the sign of the times. People have been building higher and higher and higher in the States from the 1930s, up and up and up. And having these books to show you what the consequences are, and having a very expensive movie with some very expensive stars showing what the consequences are, may have actually saved some lives. So a disaster movie of something that hasn't happened yet, I mean, Titanic has happened, but then you get disaster movie afterwards. But of something that hasn't happened yet can clue into people that, hey, this is a thing that can't possibly happen. And I think that is why this is still is a good movie, and the concept is good. The genre we can talk about, but I think you can do a lot with that. And I think they did a lot with that. I think they did everything right that you need to do with the genre. Engaging characters, a slow build-up, special effects, yes, but not ridiculous. It's not a special effects movie as such. I mean, yes, it's part of it, but that's not the point.
What about stunt work?
Everything is quite realistic. The one thing that maybe is not realistic is that Chief Steve McQueen does everything. Fair enough, and they actually address that, because right at the end they have to. Somebody has to go to the top of the building and set off an explosion, and they actually sit down. Chief O'Halloran can you do it? Because the only other person who could do that is already in the hospital. And he says, oh God, okay. So, yeah, the unrealistic thing is that it's all Chief O'Halloran that does it. But how they get him up there, they take him up in a helicopter. He gets safety gear on. He gets a winch with security, with an extra clippy-on-y thing. And when he is down, he takes it off and then wiggles it. Hey, it's ready now. It's all good. But that's where the police departments come in, because this one thing has a list this long of all the fire departments that have been consulted in this stuff, so it's all correct. All the San Francisco, every fire department in the wider vicinity, and there's a lot of footage of fire trucks coming in, and I do know fire departments like to run drills, so I think they probably ran this as a drill, to just a test run. Because that's how that works. It's better than having an actual fire to learn on. Is just doing a drill. And I have a lot of moments where I'm winching people on in one of those cage things from one place to another. It's really well done, and how dangerous fire actually is. Like I said, there are a couple of moments where people are too close to fires, but there are also a couple of moments when they actually have the breathing gear. And there's one moment where Steve McQueen and Paul Newman have to go down a couple of flights of stairs, and only Paul Newman has the breathing gear and Steve McQueen has some other gear, but not the right gear. So Paul Newman lets Steve McQueen stock up on extra air, and then he puts it back on his mask and they make a run for it. I think that's probably fair. That's probably how it would happen if you're in a pinch. It's not... They were in a pinch altogether, the whole thing. And a lot of people died, and a lot of firefighters died in this fictitious event. But yes. And I think that is a point. The film is dedicated to firefighters and the like. So they take it seriously. And yeah, I did like the movie. More than I thought it would. I was very worried it was going to be too slow, because 1974 sometimes they can be slow, but it was the right pace. Yeah, I think that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.